And we're back. Welcome back to the Auto Authorities Podcast. My name is Jay, coming to you live. Raise your hand if you love spending hours and hours and hours at the dealership when you go. How come nobody's raising their hand? It's because it's the number one thing that people don't like is the long drawn out days and nights at the dealer. And today you are going to learn from yours truly the ultimate hack for a hassle-free car buying experience. Are you ready to do this? Let's go.
Have you ever felt like you were taken for a ride while buying, selling, or repairing your car? Well, not anymore. I'm Jay, and this is the podcast to tell you what to watch out for, whether you are buying, selling, or repairing your car. With over 26 years of automotive experience, we are the Auto Authorities. This podcast is sponsored by AutoAgent.com. We're real estate agents for cars.
Boom, booyah. Welcome back to the Auto Authorities Podcast. My name is Jay. We are coming to you live. And before we get going, we're going to be talking a little bit about our sponsors, Podcastify.me. If you want a podcast like this, contact Podcastify.me. And of course, AutoAgent.com, the real estate agents for cars. And AutoAgent will sell your vehicle at no cost to you. They'll even help you buy any vehicle you want in the entire United States, keeping you from having to go into the dealership until you approve the deal. They schedule the showings, they find the vehicle, the financing, the whole 9 yards. It's a one-stop shop where you can eliminate really those long drawn out days. And we're going to be talking about that today, is the ultimate hack for a hassle-free car buying experience. So if you're just tuning in, we are live on our Facebook group page. It's called the Auto Authorities Podcast. Join the group page by simply clicking join group. And you can watch us live on Tuesdays at 12 p.m. Central Time. And if you would like to still watch us, but you don't want to watch us live, you can go to the YouTube page, The Auto Authorities. And what you can do is click the subscribe button and the notification button in the right corner, because they will notify you when the podcast hits. And if you're just driving to work and you just want to listen to the podcast and learn and have some entertainment for your drive, simply just go to places like iTunes, Pandora, Google, Amazon. It's on 19 different channels, and you can just listen to it as you please. And what I love everybody to do too, as you hear this today, I'd love you to make comments below. Let us know your stories. We're getting a lot of interesting feedback. In fact, we have a really awesome show coming up for just because of somebody's feedback. And I'm listening, and I will respond personally to any messages that you send. And if you would like to just simply send us a message, go to theautoauthorities.com. That's theautoauthorities.com. So let's really get into this. I'm going to give you the number one hack on literally how to eliminate those hours and hours of having to go to the dealership. And it's really a process that we use in our vehicle finder program. So when people hire us, it is a time-consuming process, I will assure you, but it is not as time-consuming as having to go to the dealer. And it really starts with, and I'm going to give you the used and the new car version, and some of them are one of the same. So when you find the vehicle on the website, here's how you get the information that you will need. You go to the Meet the Team or About Us. They usually have a list of all the different people that are involved on the sales team. And usually there's a manager in there. Get the name of the manager. 9 times out of 10, if you're just talking to a salesperson, they're not going to have as much information as a manager will have. I will warn you right now, it is very, very difficult to get a manager on the phone. They do a really good job of policing their phone calls because they get a lot of them, and managers are overworked. I spent now 26 years in this industry. I spent 18 years in the dealership world, and to get a manager on the phone is next to impossible. So the second best option would be to go into the Google reviews and look for common names that are mentioned in the Google reviews that are obviously positive. So they're like, Mary Smith helped me out, and Mary was wonderful, and she was so attentive to my needs, and da 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 da. That might be a good second option, is to talk to a salesperson that can make a decision. Because as we get further into this, I'm going to give you literally stuff that you can take right now uh, to buy your next vehicle, whether it be a used or a new vehicle. Once you have the manager's name, you call the dealership and you ask for that person by their first name. So let's say it's this one is Bob Jenkins. You're going to say, I would like to speak to Bob, please. And they're like, oh, are you calling for Bob Jenkins or Bob whatever? And you're like, no, Bob Jenkins. Okay, hold on one second. And then they put you on hold. And then 9 times out of 10, they don't answer the phone. So then you can leave a message. But then you should call back and talk to the receptionist again and say, Bob never answered the phone. Can you take a hand message for me? And it's really a long, drawn out type of thing because it is a pain in the butt to get anybody on the phone. And sometimes it's a pain in the butt to get anybody on the phone at all at the dealership. So once you have that, and let's say hypothetically, Bob picks up the phone, you simply say who you are and what you're trying to do. You have found a vehicle online and that you've had bad experiences in the past where you have gone to the dealerships and the vehicles were either not available, they didn't look the way they did before, like in the pictures, and you would just really like him to give you some really good information. So, one of the biggest complaints that we get, another one when people use our vehicle finder program is, and this just happened to actually one of our businesses. So, we're not just helping individuals, we're helping businesses with fleets of vehicles. So, one of these, he was looking for just a simple vehicle for his business. And he went to the dealership and he was debating if he was going to use our vehicle finder program, went to the dealership, and the thing was absolutely trashed. And he was like, this is a huge waste of my time. So then he left there after spending several hours there trying to figure out, where the vehicle is. And then once he sees the vehicle, he doesn't like it. So here's the way you eliminate that. When you call and you're talking to Bob, the manager, or Guido's brother, the manager, you simply say, is this vehicle still available? And the managers know. They know what's there and what's not there. And sometimes even in the computer system, it may show that it's there, but it may not be there. And when you're seeing things online and you see those pictures, sometimes when a dealership just takes a vehicle in, they'll take 3 to 4 pictures and they'll just get it out there online. And the vehicle has not been reconditioned and whatnot. So that's the number one question. Is this vehicle still available? That will eliminate hours. Think about the drive time you have to the dealership. Think about when you get to the dealership. And then the second piece, and this is so important, will you please go outside and take fresh photos of the vehicle? The reason being is because when you go look at vehicle pictures online, they don't quite look the same when you get there 9 times out of 10. They don't show the imperfections like you will see. And you just tell them on the phone that, hey, listen, I know that this is probably going to have some imperfections because it's a used vehicle, but will you please take a picture for me of that? And you can do the same on the new side. This is very, very misleading. A lot of times these new vehicles look like that they're online, but if you see like just a stock image, then chances are it's probably not available. But when you call, you can ask the same questions. Is this vehicle available? Is it an incoming unit? What's the story with it? And then make them take pictures of it. And when you get pictures of that vehicle, you know that that vehicle is available. And now you're not wasting your time going to the dealership. But as we get further down, we're going to take this to another level. So when I talk about levels, our goal is to take the risk level from as high as possible to as low as possible. And the way that we do that is we ask questions. If you're talking to a decision maker, and sometimes when with our vehicle finder program, when we contact the dealer, we have a representative there, and sometimes it isn't the manager, but they can make a decision and they know enough about the inventory that we know if we're wasting our time, if this thing's even available. So now you're talking to Bob, the manager, and you simply say, what was the reason for selling this vehicle? How did you get this vehicle in your inventory? This is a great question because they may say something like, we bought it at the auction. If it's a 1 to 2 year old car, that's fine because that's where a lot of dealerships buy vehicles from the auction. If they say, I got it as a trade in, that's the best case scenario. I love when they say that. We took it in on trade on a new vehicle or whatnot. But let's say that the vehicle is more than 2 years old. Let's say it's like 8 years old and they bought it at the auction. I'm telling you folks, and you guys can argue this point with me, and I'm open-minded, but that's a very bad sign if that's the case. If a vehicle is at the auction after 8 years, that means most of the time that those things have issues. We had an old adage when I sold cars, if the car has a problem, send it to the auction. So it doesn't mean it's necessarily a bad car, but a 1 to 2 year old car is usually going to be either a rental or a lease. And I do like leases. I'm not the biggest fan of rentals. And if you've heard my podcast in the past, the reason why I don't like rentals is because there's a lot of things that don't show up on the history report. When you have big companies like Enterprise and they fix the car because it's damaged or wrecked, they do not make claims against that because they're doing it all in house. Therefore, it doesn't pop up on the Carfax. So the car could have been wrecked several times. And just because it's in a fender bender doesn't mean it's a bad vehicle by any means. You just have to know a little bit more. And also you want to know like when the fender bender was. Was it last week or was it 2 years ago? If it was 2 or 3 years ago, I'm not too worried about that. So then this is another question you ask. What did you guys have to do to it when you took it into the shop for service? This is going to give you a big clue right now. If they say, well, this thing didn't need anything, it was in amazing shape, that could be good. It could be bad. But I'm going to tell you something at the very end of this episode today that will cover all of that, regardless of how these questions are answered. But if they say, we put wiper blades on it and we put 4 tires on it, those are definitely positive things to have. It's less stuff that you're going to have to do. And if it doesn't have that, you just have to figure, okay, well, am I going to have to replace tires in the next 6 months? Or do I have a couple, 3 years still with these tires? Because that's probably the number one maintenance thing that you're going to have to deal with. So then the new vehicle, obviously we know how they get the new vehicle. So the next piece is, what is the tire condition? So let's say they didn't replace the tires. When you're taking the photos, will you please take a picture of the tires and the tread depth? And there's a way to determine how deep the tread depth is without having to have fancy gadgets. It's simply taking a penny, turning it upside down on top of its head, putting it in the middle of the tread. And as long as the tread level is touching Lincoln's forehead, or it's covering as much of his forehead, that's a very, very positive thing. If it is barely touching the top of his head, that means that the car is going to need tires. And if you want to try this on your car, you're fine. But that's a really big one. So I have several other questions that I definitely think that you should ask, that we ask. But before we do that, if you're just tuning in, we're learning right now. I'm teaching you the ultimate hack for a hassle free car buying experience because people spend hours and hours and hours at the dealership. And there's nothing more frustrating than showing up and the vehicle not being available, or they don't know where the keys are, or the car won't start, or it's at detail, or it's at the body shop, whatever the situation may be, it sucks. And if you're just tuning in and you want to listen to us on YouTube and watch our videos, you can click the notification button and the subscribe button on YouTube. You can listen to us on Pandora. We have 19 different channels. And if you would like to watch us live at 12 p.m. Central Time, Tuesday on our Facebook group page, it's called the Auto Authorities Podcast. It's the group page. And what's really cool is we have a messenger, and we have a lot of people involved in that messenger. And it's just really, if you have any type of car questions, anything, buying, selling, or repairing cars, and then make some comments. I want to listen to, like, what do you think of these types of things? Is this helpful to you? If it's not helpful, let me know. I'll do the best I can to try to explain, because I'm trying my best to communicate this with you, because by asking these questions, you will save yourself a ton of time at the dealership. So let's go to the last list of the questions, because I've got a lot of good ones here. This is a big one. Ask them when they're going outside, and especially if it's a used vehicle, this wouldn't be on a new. Is there any type of a smoke smell? Because people do smoke in their cars, and it's disgusting, but people do. So ask them, is there a smoke smell? Then one of the biggest questions to ask, and this is something that there are dealers here in St. Louis under huge lawsuits, is they're adding extra fees to the deal. And this is happening all across the country. I can tell you, I at iAuto Agent that we don't charge any fees, but 99% of the dealerships do. And sometimes those fees can range from 300 something dollars to over $2,000. And I will say this, they will not show up in the search engine. So when you're searching and you see that car and you see that price, that is not including fees. So you got to dig deeper. So what you say to the manager and or your contact, what fees are involved in this and what's my out the door price? That basically is a price without fees. To take it a step further, when you get that or any other questions, have them email that to you. Can you send me a quick email with what our just a recap of our conversation, that if I buy this car, it's going to be $32,497, and then you have a $300 administrative fee or whatever it's called. So that would be $32,797, and I don't have any other fees. And they're like, sure. And make them email that to you. Get it in an email. That way it's a legal document at that point. The next piece is, does it have two sets of keys? If you've ever bought a vehicle before and you don't ask this question before you buy the vehicle, you are probably going to cost yourself somewhere in the neighborhood of $400 to $500 when you find out that it doesn't have an extra set of keys, because keys back when I started in the business were a couple bucks. Now they're about $400 or $500, and most of the time they have to be made at the dealership. They have to be programmed at the dealership. So if they only have one set of keys, you might as well just figure you're going to spend another $400 or $500, and especially if you're talking about a higher end vehicle. One of the guests that we're getting ready to have on the show bought a vehicle from Carvana. It was a Lexus, and they only gave him one set of keys, and they gave him a whole bunch of backlash when they were asking for more keys. But there's so much more to that story. Not to get too ADD on you here. The next question is, will it have a full tank of gas? If you buy a car nowadays, you're not going to always get a full tank of gas. So some people say no. Some people say yes. Hopefully it does have a full tank of gas, but it may not. So I mean, and gas isn't as expensive as it has been. Um, Here is a very, very, very important thing. Now you found out what's been done to the vehicle. You ask them, if you so choose, would you be able to drive it to your mechanic to do a pre-purchase inspection? I highly recommend that. You can look at all the Carfaxes, you can ask all the questions, but if there's misinformation on Carfax or AutoCheck, you're out of luck. The only way, and I preach this so much in the podcast, is to protect yourself by doing a pre-purchase inspection. Now, they may say to you, well, yeah, you can go do a pre-purchase inspection, but if you find anything other than, detrimental things to the vehicle, we're not going to be fixing anything on the vehicle. All right, well, at least you know what you have. And a pre-purchase inspection, depending on where you go and how detailed they are, they can be anywhere from $50 to, over $300 for a really good one. So if they say you can't take it to an inspection to do a pre-purchase inspection, say, can I bring my inspection company here? Because we have mobile companies that we work with at iAutoAgent that will do these pre-purchase inspections for you at the dealership. So if you try one of those two things, then the one thing that I do want to let you know is that you may run into, if it is a highly desired vehicle and it's a very hard vehicle to find, if you get involved with doing a pre-purchase inspection, and let's say there's somebody else coming along that doesn't need a pre-purchase inspection, they're going to push you to the side and they're going to sell that car to them because it's easier for them. They don't want to deal with all the hassle of people having to, take the vehicles places, and everything is subject to that. But it protects you. And if you're going to keep this thing for 3 to 5 to 6 to 10 years, you want to make sure that you're doing the right thing. So to recap, when you're looking on the website, find somebody, a manager that you can call. If it's not a manager, then just find somebody that has really good ratings on Google reviews and that their name is mentioned a lot of times. That chances are they're a professional and they'll get you the information you need. The biggest thing we talk about is make sure that vehicle is still available by asking those questions. Make sure that they're taking extra photos, fresh photos of the vehicle, because we all know that the vehicle doesn't look quite the same when you get there. Ask them where they got the vehicle. Ask them what they did when they reconditioned the vehicle. Ask them the tire condition, smoke smell, 2 sets of keys, full tank of gas, all of these things, because you have to figure all of this in when you're buying the vehicle. And then on new vehicles, obviously you don't have to ask as many questions, but one of the questions is this thing really available? And if it isn't, what are the fees? I'm sorry, if it is available, what are the fees involved? Because if you're looking for a really, really desirable vehicle, you're going to be paying lots of money. Please make your comments below. I'd love to hear your stories, maybe some horror stories. Everybody loves to hear horror stories of when you went to go to the dealership. How long does it usually take you to go to the dealership from start to finish? So, like, if you're buying a car, when you start researching the car and not even knowing what you want, all the way to that final signing the papers at the dealer, how long does it take you to do it? What's the longest time you've ever spent at a dealership? Please make comments below. I want to hear. Again, you can find us on Facebook group page, and you can find us on YouTube, and you can find us on iTunes. And I'd love a review. So hope you found that very valuable. Again, my name is Jay, and I Love doing these for you. And I will see you on the next episode. Peace.